Howdy doody buckaroonies, and welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with Cameron. Today, I wanted to walk you through my first sound bank, which is available now on Reason Plus, which is Hazy LoFi. Originally, when I set out to make some videos about my content packs available on Reason Plus, I wanted to make some cool, trailers, but after thinking about it, I thought that that was really a bit self-indulgent, and instead, I wanted to give you guys a practical introduction to these packs, talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of making the packs, and show what is in them and give you some ideas on how to use it, or maybe some kind of tips and tricks for other little things in the content packs that you might miss. Reason Plus, in case you didn't know, is the new subscription-based service from Reason Studios that allows you to get access to everything Reason has to offer from Reason Studios themselves, as well as access to a bunch of content packs. And if you got Reason Rack free from Plugin Boutique, that was a pretty recent thing. I think it's a pretty good deal. If you don't have Reason at all, it's a pretty good deal because Reason is pretty expensive overall. But if you have Reason Suite or something, it might not be that great of a value quite yet. But I think as time goes on and more content packs are added and more devices and updates are added, then it will probably start to demonstrate its value more to some of the bigger license owners. So regardless of how you feel about Reason Plus and subscription-based services, that's not really what we're here to talk about today. I just wanted to get that out in the open. If you have Reason Plus already and you want to check out Hazy LoFi, you can find the link for that down below. And if you are thinking about picking up a copy of Reason or getting started with Reason Plus, I also now have an affiliate link which you can use in the description, and it really helps out the channel, so I do appreciate that. And I think Reason all around is a pretty good value, and Reason Plus gives you a lot of stuff, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like getting Splice, but with your DAW. And I think Reason has long been the DAW with the best built-in collection of instruments and sounds. And I think the Reason Rack is super cool because it allows you to get access to all the things that make Reason great in whatever DAW you already own or are comfortable with. So I think all around Reason is just super, super cool. But all that out of the way, let's dive in and check out Hazy LoFi. So here we are in the demo track for my pack, Hazy LoFi. I'm just going to play a quick segment of it here so you can get an idea of kind of the sound and vibe of this pack. So that is Hazy LoFi. It is a Hazy LoFi pack that, fun factoid, was originally named Dark Roast, and that is for one very specific reason. When I set out to create a sample bank, or a preset bank in this case, there are three things I need to know. I need to know my client, I need to know the project goal, and I need to know the end user. And with Reason, this was actually incredibly difficult, and I had a lot of trouble coming up with inspiration for this pack and getting started with this whole project because I was asked to create 3 content packs for Reason Plus to launch with, which was a pretty big ask. You know, doing 3 projects simultaneously with no real direction was really overwhelming. I was just given free rein to make 3 content packs of whatever I want. Typically when I'm making a sample library or content bank, there's some kind of end goal. We want dubstep basses, we want trap loops, we want post-rock ambient guitar pads, we want reverb swells, we want cinematic strings, you know, something like that. And with this, it was really overwhelming to come up with 3 good ideas. It's easy to come up with a lot of ideas, it's hard to come up with good ones. And one of the things I learned from watching a lot of the Reason Studios streams was the idea of simplification and the value of keeping things stripped down and at their core instead of trying to overblow everything. And I couldn't think of a better way to start off my Reason Plus packs than with coffee, because it's morning coffee with Cameron. With that said, the drum kit for this pack was actually entirely made with coffee samples, which was kind of fun. So here we have the Dark Roast drums, and I made my own little combinator skin, which is the original theme of the pack, but the name was changed by Reason Studios to Hazy LoFi because it just better suited the overall vibe, but whatever, it's still the Dark Roast pack to me. So Dark Roast drums is pretty straightforward, but what I wanted to do is demonstrate, I guess, how you can make drum sounds using the Reason Rack. Now, normally when I'm doing drums and stuff, I will do all the processing stuff and all that, and then I will bounce that out, and then I will put that back into the drum instrument so you don't see all the inner workings of it. You simply get the final sounds, but I wanted to maybe just demonstrate a couple techniques and abilities with this pack. So in this drum kit, we have a kick, we've got a nice crunchy boy rim shot, we've got some hats that almost sit more in shaker territory, and then another hat here, which can also sort of act as like a lo-fi rim shot. I find if you pitch that one down even further, you can get kind of a nice chunky rim shot. I usually like using hats and claps for rim shots, actually. So for this kick drum here, I've used some EQ and compression to really make it hit super hard. I pitched it around, I played with the decay. If you open up the decay, you'll hear the full sample, which is actually kind of nice, but you know, you can tighten that up and get a nice, really tight knocking kick. I've also used the pitch envelope here to get that nice punchy kick sound. We've got some EQ and stuff going on, and if we flip the rack around, I've actually left in a couple of things. So I took the snare output and added the reverb here so that you could control the amount of reverb. I find it really annoying in samples when there's reverb printed into them because I often like to add my own, so I wanted to leave that here so you could just dial that in. That all feeds through this mixer. Then the mixer goes through a pulverizer because pulverizer just makes things awesome. A scream here, EQ, another compressor, and another scream. So if we flip this back around, that's where these macros come into play. So right away we've got, so with these macros we can take this and turn it into this. And we can dial in the amount of crushy, explosive lo-fi. We can add more compression just because pulverizer makes things awesome, and we get the snare verb dial. So we can add a pretty short dry snare or a kind of roomier rim shot, and if we crunch this up a little bit, you can get this pretty heavy kind of, I don't know, aliasing boom bap type drum kit. So that's really all there is to talk about with the drums. Next up here, we have the whipped cream keys that sound like this. So when I was making this pack, it was obviously meant to be sort of a lo-fi inspired pack, but instead of doing all the standard lo-fi tropes, I wanted to add a twist on it and give it something a bit new. So this is almost kind of a retro game sound, and I've added some controls for the reverbs, more phasery, delay, lo-fi, a darken button that just chills out the amount of crunchiness you get from the lo-fi button, and I think this is just a useful, almost 8-bit chiptune thing. So with that lo-fi, now we've got kind of a classic chiptune type key sound. So that's just a fun one. I think that's useful for adding a nod to a different genre of lo-fi into this whole pack, which is kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to meld some different lo-fi aspects from different genres and styles and put them together to create something more interesting, which I think worked out pretty well overall. Here we've got the Frappe 808, which is a damn heavy bass, and this was really fun to make. So this was made using Europa with a sine shaper. So this just adds those big gritty harmonics. I've got the distortion going on here, pulverizer of course, and a maximizer. So without all this, it's pretty wimpy. When we bring in the distortion, we get more of those harmonics. Pulverizer just makes it really mean, and the maximizer is really what takes it up to that next level with this soft clipper. So with this one, I just wanted to add a nice heavy 808 that was more, I guess, kind of like an upright bass almost in the higher registers. And in the lower registers, you just get this super modern heavy bass sound. So that was how this was made. I added controls for glide, the fatness amount, so it just gets more distorted. The harmonic control, so we can get a very clean sound or a more overdriven thing by adding an extra harmonic to the distortion. And then the distort control here, just to make things nice and aggressive. So a pretty useful 808 sound, I think. And it's got that nice 808 glide thing going on, which is nice for a lot of modern production. Next up here is honestly probably my favorite patch from this pack, and it's the Caramel Crunch Crackle, which, if we give this some volume, is just a lo-fi crunch generator. It just makes vinyl noise, and this was made using Thor because there's some noise oscillators. I controlled the density and then added a little bit of bandpass noise as kind of like a tonal, consistent, stable noise. There's also a speaker simulator, so if you turn it off, you can get almost more of like a direct output noise, but we can make it sound like it's coming through just a, I don't know, really crappy vinyl player. We can add brightness to the speaker, just so it sounds maybe a bit more hi-fi. We can compress it, which brings out some of the more subtlety, detail thingies. Really brings up that noise, so that's more just for generating like a noise bed. I've got controls here though for the density, the amount of hiss, so I can just get crackle. And this crackle can actually be fun to just sample and layer, like with a snare or something. We can get really hissy noise. We can add brightness, which is more apparent without the speaker. And then a broken, which just destroys the sound quite a bit with just over-the-top ridiculous compression. The next sound is Colombian keys, which sounds like this. A really lovely, large, phasery key thing. So if we pop on in here, this actually uses the radical keys and then the sweeper, reverb, pulverizer, and echo. And with this, I wanted to get those Rhodesy electric piano vibes that you hear in tons of lo-fi music, but add something a bit more, I guess, traditional in the sense of if I was recording a band and they wanted like a lo-fi sound and they had a Rhodes, this is probably what I would do, is add like phasers and echo and stuff like that and just make it really crunchy and dirty. So with that, we've just got a nice, and you can get a really large, angry piano or something that's a bit more dry, and you could even bypass all the effects just to get a nice kind of crunchy overall sound for the keys. So pretty straightforward patch, but again, I wanted to make something that was just useful and could play several roles, because this thing with a bit of, I don't know, different flavor to your piano part, you could use it as almost kind of like a cinematic-esque backing thing. So with, you know, a bunch of reverb or something, that could make a nice, I don't know, crunchy pad or something to sit underneath the score or whatever. Here we've got the Donut Shop sweep effects, and in this track, I just wanted to create a nice kind of lo-fi dub sort of vibe, because that bass really kind of screamed dub to me in the overall flavor of this production and how the demo track turned out. So it adds those kind of dub sirens, and you can use it as a tonal element too, because I wanted it to be like a classic dub siren sort of thing, but be a playable instrument. So we've got just a bunch of dubby type effects here. And we could add lo-fi. Which kind of turns it into more of a sound effect type of thing. So you could take this and play it in like a really low register and get kind of a aggressive bass or something. You could even play with the high pass filter and just get some kind of zappy noise, or get some really deep, aggressive, distorted, almost Reese 808 types of things. So kind of a fun patch just to noodle around with and see what you can create with it. Next up, we've got the stirring sticks keys here, which are really fun. Sparkly, I don't know, almost sticky sounding keys. It's just kind of a cool patch. So this was made using the vibraphone, a couple of sweepers, echo, and a reverb. So again, I wanted to enhance that dubby vibe. So when you have this playing off the bass and all that, it just adds this nice bright layer. And with the different settings here on the sweepers, I've got a phaser and a flanger, and I've got this set up in a way that brings this interesting clicky thing. So if you play really rapidly, you get kind of the effect of stirring coffee. So that's really why that sound exists and was that way. I wanted to kind of enhance something with a dubby, really affected weird texture, but also have it kind of play back into the overall theme of dark roast. Next up, Sweet Cream Dub Bass. This guy. Really a kind of aggressive thing for this pack. I almost didn't use this sound, but it added this little bit of tension to the overall production, which I just thought was interesting to add into the demo track. And I thought it was just a cool patch all around. So this is based around a Maelstrom with, again, just a pretty dubby effects rack. And I think the nice thing too with some of these patches in this pack, it's easy to then replace the instrument with whatever you want, like a friction or whatever, and you get these dubby effects racks that just add a bit of vibe and flavor. And because the Reason rack can also be used as an effect, you could load up this as an effect and run audio through it to get kind of dubby effects change. So not much to talk about with this one other than there's a high pass control, which if we bring that down, you can get these really intense bass things, and then just some controls for reverb effects and crushiness to the whole thing with some compression. So that's really the dub bass, just kind of a classic womp thing with some effects and stuff on it. The last two sounds in this pack are some pads. So this is the Bean Grinder pad, and if we open this up, it's actually a Complex 1, which is a really, really fun modular synth that I maybe want to do kind of a dedicated video on someday because it's really, really fun. I love modular stuff, and I don't think there are too many videos out there kind of explaining how to use it, but it's probably one of the better devices in Reason overall. So again, dubby effects chain here. I kind of just used a lot of dub style effects to create the sounds. This is a really raspy thing, and I wanted to get almost kind of like a Massive Attack vibe going on. And if you play this lower, you can get a sort of Massive Attack-esque sound out of it. I wanted just to create this moving, rhythmic, textured pad that kind of evolves as you play. But it's monophonic, so when you play melodies with the pad, you get just a bit of a different flavor, and then just a handful of controls here. To just shape it in a couple different ways, but a nice sound that sits under things nicely and also acts, in the case of this track, as a sort of string. The other thing with this is in this track, it also acts almost like a layer of really high strings that are really crusty. So it can be nice to add under a set of strings if you have like an orchestral bit or like some strings going on in your track. This can layer in and add a string-like ambient texture that just fills out the sound in kind of an interesting way. And that brings us to the last sound in this pack, the Sunrise Delight pad. And this is just another pretty texture-oriented pad, because I wanted to, again, nod to a different genre of lo-fi, which is like lo-fi ambient synth music, stuff you would find on channels like Amulets and whatnot, like those tape loop you know, really just gritty, dirty, but pleasing sonic textures. So this is a really great layering tool, and personally, I really love the sound of this pad underneath a piano. So if you have like a nice piano in your track, you could call this up and play it underneath it, and it just sounds really, really cool. In terms of the controls, reverb, delay, lo-fi, crush, not much to talk about. And then the widen control here, which just adds like some chorusing movement. But this is actually made with Wave, which is a synth I really overlooked a lot. Something I still honestly don't use that much of. I just kind of forget it exists. But a very useful old school kind of rompler sort of synth where you get like a single cycle waveform to play with and combine. But by layering this up in, you know, several instances or whatever, you can get some incredibly cool old school sounds with Wave. So a pretty useful thing. And then, of course, I had to use the quartet somewhere in this. I just love quartet. Originally, I wanted to use the grain mode, but I found it just sounded too watery and modulated, whereas the Bucket Brigade version was a little more consistent. But the grain version does sound really intense if you want to play with just switching over to the grain setting. To quickly demonstrate this with a piano, because I think it is a really nice combination, this is Piano Tech with a super soft cinematic sort of piano along with the Sunrise Delight pad, and it sounds like this. So a really pleasing sound. It might be a little intense here if we soften that up a bit. It can add this nice kind of blooming texture, and I find when you combine these two on like a group track, add a little reverb and a little compression, you get this just huge cinematic piano with this blooming, gritty tape loop texture underneath that I think is a lot of fun and very good for like epic sounding intros, outros, bridges, or whatever. And that is a tour around my new pack, Hazy LoFi, which is available right now on Reason Plus. If you want to check out Reason Plus for yourself and get this pack, you can find the link to the pack down in the description below. If you do not have Reason Plus and you're thinking about getting it, you can also use my affiliate link down in the description because it really helps support the channel so ya boy can make more videos like this one. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. Maybe you picked up a neat trick with the Reason Rack or something, because it's incredibly powerful and fun to explore. And if you use this pack in one of your tracks or even just one of the sounds in one of your tracks, please send it to me. I would really love to hear how this gets used out there in the wild. As always, I hope this video inspires you to get out there and make something awesome. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon.